As I think many of you in the room will know, the change with express entry that is coming to the immigration selection process in the Canadian context is anticipated to be literally game-changing on a lot of fronts, with potential ramifications for the work that we do on settlement, some of which I think we can see in a crystal ball now, some of which I think will become apparent when we see those clients coming through our doors. We are very lucky to have with us today a former colleague from Citizenship and Immigration Canada, Lucille Leblanc, who is the Regional Director General for our Ontario region for an extended period, and has now taken on the role of Ambassador for Express Entry, where she's crisscrossing the country, speaking to an awful lot of employers fora, as well as all of the integration summits. So she'll be the only individual that goes to all of the integration summits across the country, for which I think she'll deserve an award. She's going to spend about 20 minutes running through the presentation. It's available on the AAISA website in both English and in French, and then we'll have a question and answer period for about 10 minutes before we all scurry off to our next set of discussions. So if you could join me in welcoming Lucille for what I'm sure will be a very interesting presentation.
Thank you very much, John. I very much appreciate the opportunity to come to speak to you today because, as John has indicated, I think express entry represents something fairly important in terms of the immigration system for the future. Bon après-midi, mesdames, messieurs. Merci beaucoup de m'accueillir parmi vous pour cette session. La présentation sera en anglais. Les diapos sont disponibles dans les deux langues. Et lors de la période de questions, ça me ferait plaisir de répondre à vos questions ou sinon pas durant la période, mais par après, lorsque la session se termine. So I understand from John that some of you have been present at presentations on express entry before. So for those of you where that applies, I would have two suggestions for you. One of them could be that you could go get another piece of cheesecake and you could indulge because this is Halloween. Or if you prefer to stay in the room, what I'm going to do my best to do is to perhaps give you a few more pieces of information regarding express entry that perhaps not received before. So we'll get started. So in terms of the changes to the immigration system, what we are looking for in terms of the objectives is really to better align the selection of immigrants to the factors that lead to success in Canada, to make it easier for employers to find skilled foreign nationals, to meet the labor market needs in Canada, and to make application processing faster. So in January 2015 will be the launch of express entry. And it is modeled on systems that are similar to this that are called expressions of interest that are currently in use in Australia and in New Zealand. So express entry, what it is, it's a fully electronic application management system, and it will apply to the three key economic programs we have today within the immigration system. They are listed there on the slide, and this is very important. So you have the Federal Skilled Worker, you have the Federal Skilled Trades Program, and also the Canadian Experience Class. Now, in addition to this, a portion of the province or the territory's provincial nominee program will also be processed under express entry, so a portion thereof. So before I change the slide, I just want to emphasize one point, because I find that as I speak to many groups, there is some misunderstanding around what express entry is and what it isn't. So it's important to keep in mind that this program is about permanent immigration to Canada. This is not about temporary foreign workers. So keep that in mind. We'll continue on with a bit of background. So it's important as well that the Express Entry is not a new immigration program. What it is really a new way for the department to manage the immigration applications online. From the prospective immigrant, the skilled worker perspective, Express Entry is going to improve the system by reducing processing times and also by facilitating matches between the skilled person who wishes to come to Canada and the employer in Canada who may have a vacancy. The next slide is a bit of a comparison in terms, and here's where it gets a little confusing because it talks about the old system. Well, when they talk about the old system, it's actually the system we have today and how we recruit economic immigrants as compared to the system that will be in place in January of 2015. So in the past, as in right now, up until to December, we processed applications on a first-come, first-served basis. So there was no way for the department to fast-track potential immigrants that had the greatest likelihood of success in Canada. And of course, as well, for the department, we could not control the number of applications that we received. And we often received, pretty well all the time, many more than we could accept. So what that meant is that those applicants stayed and waited, sometimes months and even sometimes years before the applications would be processed. So certainly we've made some progress there. There have been some investments made to address those cases that were waiting. We are now looking at an average of 12 to 14 months to process these applications, but we want to do better. So moving forward, those candidates who are most likely to succeed in Canada, rather than those who are first in line, will receive what is called an invitation to apply for permanent residence. And those candidates who have received that invitation will have their completed applications for permanent residence processed in 6 months or less. So with Express Entry, provinces and territories will be able to use the Express Entry system to find candidates for their provincial nominee programs. And the Express Entry candidates who are nominated by a province or a territory will be invited to apply for permanent residence. In addition, under Express Entry, employers are going to have a more direct role in economic immigration. So candidates with a job offer are also going to receive an invitation to apply. Now, I'm going to pause here for a moment because I also think it's important to emphasize the following point. From the point of view of the employers, their responsibility today and their responsibility in 2015 when Express Entry comes into effect is that they must first seek out Canadian citizens and permanent residents currently in Canada to fill the vacancies that they have within their companies or within their firms. And if they are unable to find in their particular location an individual or individuals who meet that skill that they are looking for, then they look elsewhere and they may look to foreign nationals. But the first responsibility is to look here first. Candidates can increase their chances of being invited to apply by promoting themselves directly to employers. And those candidates without a nomination from a province or territory, or those who do not have a job offer, will be required to register on the Government of Canada Job Bank. And this will help to increase their chances of finding a job before they arrive in Canada. And of course, candidates can also promote themselves on private sector job boards and via recruiters, etc. So the next slide gives you a very high-level view of what does the Express Entry system look like. So you look at the slide, starting with step 1 on the left. So what Express Entry does is that it introduces a new step in the process from the point of view of the candidate. And so that first step is that the candidate goes online, completes a profile, and that is what indicates that they are interested in immigrating to Canada. The individuals who meet the entry criteria are then entered into a pool of potential candidates. The individuals, as I indicated in the earlier slide, who do not have a job offer or a nomination from a province are going to be required to register with the Government of Canada Job Bank. In the second step, the individuals who best meet the needs of Canada are then invited to submit that application. And again, since only those who are invited to apply are going to be processed, then the department is able to make a commitment that the vast majority of those applications will be processed in 6 months or less. So that was a very high-level overview. So what I'd like to do next is just take a couple of those steps and go into a little bit more detail so that you can actually see how this system will function. So, creating the profile. So the individual, as I indicated, goes online and completes a profile, and that is the indication that they are interested in immigrating to Canada. The profile is going to be asking them questions so that they need to provide information around their skills, their work experience, their language ability, their education, to name but some of those factors. And in order to qualify for the pool, the candidates must meet the criteria of one of the 3 federal economic immigration programs that are listed on the slide. So they need to meet the requirements of one of these. They may meet the requirements of more than one, but they need to meet at least one. At this stage, the skills and the experience are self-declared by the candidate. Their claims regarding their education, their work experience, the other factors, all that are going to influence the immigration decision, they'll be verified at the time that the candidate is invited to apply and submits a completed application. So once that application is received by the immigration officer and it is reviewed, at that time they will be verifying the information that's been provided. The candidates are going to have a strong incentive to tell the truth, because if they misrepresent the information, either in the profile or in their applications, there are penalties associated with that, and penalties can include being prevented from applying to come to Canada for a period of 5 years. So the job bank registration, still part of step 1. So the candidates need to register with the job bank if they don't have a job offer or they're not nominated by a province. And what the job bank will do was help to match candidates with the employers and jobs based on the skills, the knowledge, and the experience that they've declared in their profile. So in terms of the pool, so the candidates who meet the criteria, they complete their job bank profile, then they're entered into this pool. Once they are in the pool, they're going to be given a point score that's based on the information that they've provided in their profile. And so again, that speaks to their skills, their work experience, their language ability, their education. And they're going to be ranked against the other candidates in the pool. Candidates will be awarded extra points if they do have a job offer by an employer or if they've been nominated by a province or territory. So therefore, we'll be encouraging candidates to promote themselves to employers and to the provinces. And while they are in the pool, candidates are required to update their profile whenever there is a circumstance that changes for them. So now we're on to step 2, the invitation to apply. So those candidates who have the highest scores are invited to apply. And so who are they? Who are those who are going to be among the highest ranking? You see them listed there. So they have high human capital scores, or they have a valid job offer, or they have been nominated by a province or territory. So I want to stop here for just a moment just to elaborate on this a little bit. So the job offer, the nomination, that's fairly straightforward. But that other category that's there, high human capital scores. So just to open up a bracket here. So you are well aware that each year the Minister of Immigration, Citizenship and Immigration tables the immigration plan in Parliament. And that lays out for the following calendar year what will be the number of immigrants that are allowed entry into Canada. And there are targets that are established for each of the immigration classes. We're talking today about the economic classes, the economic programs, and so the plan establishes what is the range in terms of the targets that we will admit to Canada under those immigration classes. So we're talking about the skilled workers, the skilled trades, and the Canadian experience class. So to come back, high human capital scores. So once that pool is in effect, those individuals with the highest scores at the top, when the department draws from that pool, not only will they draw the candidates that have been nominated by the provinces and the ones who have job offers from employers, they will also draw from the pool those individuals with the high scores in order that we may meet the targets established by the immigration plan as it relates to economic immigration for that particular year. So those are the instances where we'll be drawing from the pool. So the draw in terms of the maximum from the pool is going to be driven by the targets that are established in the immigration plan each year. Continue on to invitation to apply. So once the candidate receives that invitation, they have 60 days to complete their application online and to submit it in one of the categories, and these are the same programs that I've been speaking of since the very start. And we are committing as a department to process the majority of these applications within 6 months or less, assuming that at the moment we receive that online application, that it is complete. The requirements are the same as they are now in terms of medical examination, police checks, etc. So under express entry, the provinces and territories are able to nominate candidates in order to meet the unique local or regional market needs. And as I've indicated previously, when a province or a territory identifies or nominates an individual, they are awarded sufficient points to be able to be drawn from the pool and invited to apply. So I'll finish up with a couple of points that you should keep in mind as it relates to express entry. So as is the case right now, the applicants are not required to hire an immigration representative in order to participate in express entry. As part of their profile, candidates are going to be required to submit valid language test results and educational credential assessments. If they are part of the class of the skilled worker, it will be compulsory to get that educational assessment. So they'll just be submitting the scores or the results at the time that they submit the information in the pool, but at the time they submit their application, then they will actually have to submit the documents. There's no fee for submitting a profile. There are fees associated, though, with the language test and with the educational credential assessment. So express entry, by virtue of the programs that it applies to, is open to candidates in skilled occupation. And under the National Occupation Classification, it is those in classification O, A, or B. The profiles are valid for 1 year. Candidates who don't receive an invitation to apply in the 12 months can resubmit their profile, and as long as they still meet the criteria of the program, they will be re-entered into the pool. So, to wrap up, so we have the launch coming in January of 2015. Work is being done by Employment and Social Development Canada in terms of modernizing the job bank website, both from the point of view of the individuals, those looking for employment, as well as for the employers who are looking to recruit. And the department is also committing to continue the consultation and the discussion with employers and with stakeholders beyond the launch, because we appreciate that we will need to address issues as the system is implemented. We'll need to address issues as they arise. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My question is about people who are in Canada already and might have jobs but don't have permanent status. So, and what if they don't need this LMI, former, right? So, if they have just open work permits, what their relationship will be with this express entry?
Okay, so one of the options, did you want me to reply now or get the other questions? Okay, all right.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Je m'appelle Mohamed. C'est un truc comment on appelle ça, qui me gratine un peu la tête. C'est par rapport à ce que vous avez dit, par rapport au Language and Trade Education Assessment. Je me demande dans quelle mesure ce test ou bien cet assessment peut être fait en dehors du Canada. Quel contrôle le gouvernement peut avoir sur ce test-là, en dehors du Canada?
Hi, my name is Gemma. I need to know if you are in NOC A or B and you're presently with the employer, does it mean you have more chances? Thank you.
Okay, so perhaps I'll answer your question first and then I'll work my way back. So the individual who is currently in Canada but on a temporary basis, because they may be a temporary foreign worker, if they are as part of the NOC O, A, or B, that their employer is prepared to give them a permanent job offer. Although the presentation doesn't mention it, almost in all of the cases, a labor market impact assessment will also be required. So the employer will be required to obtain that labor market impact assessment. So in those cases, the individual who is currently temporary in Canada, if they have the job offer, the employer has received the labor market impact assessment, they go online, complete their profile, they indicate that though both of those things are in place, what that will mean is that at the next draw from the pool, they will have sufficient points that they will be drawn from the pool and invited to apply. La prochaine question, c'était au sujet de l'évaluation de les compétences au point de vue de langue, au point de vue de l'éducation. Alors, c'est le ministère qui entre avec des ententes, avec des fournisseurs, qui établit les standards qui sont à rencontrer pour les candidats qui vont être évalués au point de vue de la langue ou au point de vue de leurs compétences au point de vue d'éducation. And I think the first question was similar perhaps to the third in the sense of someone who was already in Canada. So if an individual is in Canada currently temporarily as a temporary foreign worker, it is possible for them to apply using express entry, again, assuming they have a permanent job offer from an employer and that the employer has obtained a labor market impact assessment. So whatever requirements that are in place in terms of labor market impact assessments in January 2015 is what will apply with respect to express entry. So if no labor market impact assessment is required, then the valid job offer will be what is required for the individual in order to be pulled from the pool and invited to apply for permanent residence.
Oui, bonjour, mon nom est Marie-Laure Polidor. J'ai une question par rapport au travailleur étranger qui est déjà sur place, qui s'est fait mettre à la porte. Est-ce qu'il doit refaire toute la démarche d'obtenir le LMIA, etc., pour se trouver un emploi? Ou est-ce que le gouvernement a trouvé une façon de faciliter le travailleur qui est déjà sur place, qui a déjà fait ses preuves, qui a déjà travaillé, en lui donnant un permis ouvert ou la résidence, ou je ne sais pas?
Alors,
Two more questions.
okay.
I have a question about the nature of permanent employment. Can you define that further? If someone has a job offer for a 1 or 2 year contract, would that suffice? Or what exactly is meant by permanent employment?
Last question.
Yeah, I was just trying to do the math and looking at, 250,000 immigrants every year who are accepted to Canada, of which about 60% of those are the economic class, which is 150,000. So my question was, for those 3 classes that you name, what percentage is that of the economic class? Because my first thought was, what? We need 150,000 new workers, skilled workers every year? But obviously it's less than that, so I'm curious about that number.
Okay, so I'll answer the last question first. So, keep in mind, what we're doing here is a different way to manage the applications. So express entry doesn't change. So if I remember correctly, and this is just off the top of my head, I think for the year 2014, the target with respect to economic immigration was somewhere around 110,000, if I remember correctly. So that doesn't change under express entry. Whatever targets are set in the plan is what the department will be working from in terms of how many people will be pulled from the pool and will be processed. It's the nominations, the employers who give the job offers, and then the others that the department will select as well. All of those together form part of that upper limit in terms that is established in the immigration plan. So express entry doesn't change any of that. Express entry is a way for us to manage applications. We're going to take these profiles online. We're going to accept applications once an individual is invited to apply online. But this pool of candidates that exist, that could have 20,000, 200,000 applications in them, they're a pool. That there's in no way a guarantee that the individual, any one of the individuals in the pool, will be invited to apply. So the size of that pool, the larger it is, the better it is for Canada, in the sense that for employers and for the country to make the selection, then you have, in terms of being able to select the best talent. But the size of the pool, the limit within which we are working is still the immigration plan that's tabled in Parliament. The other question was around defining in terms of the permanency of the job. Now, I must admit here, I don't recall, in terms of the information that I have at hand, what the scenario is if an employer specifies that the employment is for a period of 2 years, as the example that was given. So if the person who asked that question could give me their card, I'll make sure that we get back to you on that. I just don't remember off the top of my head what the situation was. To the first question, alors les travailleurs sur place qui sont mis à la porte, alors il s'agit de clarifier, est-ce que le travailleur qui est sur place est un résident permanent? Alors si oui, il est comme n'importe qui d'autre qui perd son emploi pour une raison ou pour une autre et maintenant à la recherche d'un autre emploi. Au point de vue de l'immigration, il n'y a aucun impact. Alors, oui, alors ceci, ça n'a rien à faire avec le système d'entrée express. Pour l'individu qui est au Canada, sur une base temporaire, qui est comme on appelle le temporary foreign worker, le système d'entrée express, jusqu'au moment que cette personne reçoit de l'employeur une offre permanente d'emploi, à ce moment-là, entrée express peut lui servir. Mais au moment où la personne est toujours ici sur une base temporaire, le système d'entrée express n'entre pas en jeu.
I'm super conscious of the time. If you could join me in thanking Lucille. Those of you